Good afternoon, folks. This is the 7th of October. I'm back on Coleman Cuts the Mustard, produced by David Yates, and I'm going to read from where I left off. Coronavirus, is this how they plan to steal and sell your DNA? The words of Dr. Vernon Coleman, MB, CHB, D Science, FRSA. Governments everywhere are busy rolling out antibody testing programs. Antigen tests, which involve taking a swab from the nose or throat, simply show if someone actually has the coronavirus in their body. But there are groups of more than one coronavirus. I'm not talking about isolated. And antibody tests involve taking a blood sample and looking to see if the body contains antibodies which respond to the virus. If you have antibodies in your blood, then you have had and have overcome the coronavirus. The blood sample will be sent off to a laboratory to be tested. This will be a much bigger testing program than the antigen testing. Governments are planning to do millions of antibody tests on their populations. And the key words here are blood sample. Because when you take a blood sample, you can of course easily take a DNA sample. You can take DNA samples with other body tissues, but blood is so easy. And if that thought doesn't strike terror in your heart, then you really have not been paying attention. Since March of 2020, governments everywhere have been tearing up all the traditional values which we used to take for granted. That is, freedom, democracy, and privacy are now just a thing of the past. Most people in the Western world are now living in police states. The emergency bill, which was passed by the British government in March, gave British politicians and civil servants much the same sort of power over the people that the Patriot Act gave the authorities in America. We all might as well be living in China or Russia for all the freedom we have these days. And don't kid yourself that the governments will give back all that power in a few months' time. Governments never give back power they have taken. So, to get back to your DNA, if you trust your government to always do the right and decent thing, then you can switch off now. I envy you your innocence and your faith. I suspect, however, that most people have by now lost what little faith they had in their government and its advisors. Vernon Coleman and I have shown in other videos how we have been lied to, tricked, manipulated and brainwashed. And I saw the police myself personally on the 26th of September in Trafalgar Square, how they steamrolled everybody who were just silent and listening and weren't causing any trouble. We were treated brutally, or the people that were. I think I have had the coronavirus, said Vernon Coleman, and if I have to have an antibody test, I expect that the government will also take my DNA. I expect them to store it along with your DNA and everyone else's DNA. The next question, big question, is what will they do with it? And this again is a question of trust. Well, I wouldn't trust them with mine. Do we trust them to store our DNA like they do our information, so that they might be able to use it to help us one day? They want to kill us, not help us. Sadly, if we believe that, then we're well into tooth fairy territory. Me and my fairy stories for children. I think governments everywhere will take our DNA and store it. So do I. And I think they will sell it. So do I. They'd sell their own grandmothers, they would. Governments at all levels have a track record. They sell every bit of information they can collect, yes, to advertisers, so we'll spend our money here, there and everywhere. They have been selling information about voters for decades. They sell census information. They demand private and confidential information. And then they flog it to anyone prepared to pay the right price. In the UK, the NHS has been collecting information about us all for years. To begin with, they promised that they would not sell the information. They actually gave us an option. If we did not want to sell them to sell our private medical information to drug companies, then we could say so, and they would not. Well, that is what they said, but I think they sold it anyway. Look on the NHS website and you will see that they say that the NHS collects confidential patient information from all NHS organisations and all private organisations providing NHS funded care. Then they flog this information to researchers, to the medical establishment, and wait for it, because this is the good bit, to drug companies. They say that the drug companies will not use it for marketing or insurance purposes. They presumably know that because the companies they sell it to tell them they will not. There's still a get-out clause. If you do not want them to sell your information, but it's got more holes in it than a colander, the same is true everywhere. Private medical information is sold to anyone prepared to buy it. And this brings us back to your DNA. I do not think they will be able to resist storing our DNA when they do antibody tests. They will sell it. Of course they will. They will say that since they took the sample, then they own your DNA, and they will flog it to drug companies, insurance companies, and anyone else who wants to buy it. Governments have already created biobanks with genetic material they took from screening tests, and now governments everywhere need huge amounts of money to pay for the coronavirus mess they have made of the world. Does this all matter? Well, I rather think it does. Drug and insurance companies will know everything about your body, and they will be able to mix and match that with the information they buy from search engines, your bank, the supermarkets, and everyone else. The last vestige of your privacy will be gone, and they will use the information ruthlessly. As an aside, let me just tell you that since Vernon Coleman's wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, both she and I have been bombarded with utterly unnecessary and inappropriate online advertisements for funeral services, cancer charities and other goodies. I do not know who sold our information, but it doesn't really matter where they got it, does it? To say that I find it intrusive is to be considerably politer than I feel. I strongly suspect that we will have no rights over our DNA. They will, of course, pass our DNA details on to all police and security services. We can all trust them, can't we? Well, after I saw the behaviour of the police in London on the 26th of September, I'll never trust them again. Drug companies will use your DNA to predict what diseases you might develop, and they will want to sell you useful drugs to stop you getting whatever it is they know you are going to get wrong with you. Insurance companies will use your DNA to predict your future. You will perhaps find that your premiums suddenly soar because your insurance company knows something about your future. Employers will doubtless see your DNA details and be unwilling to hire you if they see something in your future that does not appeal. How many job candidates will find themselves being refused time and time again because prospective employers see they are likely to develop Parkinson's disease or dementia or drug addiction? Your DNA information will be used in conjunction with your credit card and bank information too, of course. And that will be much easier when they get rid of nasty, grubby cash. And they will mix it with all the information you've put on your social media and which you cannot erase however hard you try. Anything you ever put on example on Facebook belongs to Facebook permanently as in forever. So you'll be standing at the checkout at the supermarket and the assistant will take the chocolate bar out of your shopping. What's the matter with that? You will ask, puzzled. The system says you can't have it. You can't have that, the assistant will say. She will look at the screen in front of her. You are going to get diabetes, so you are not allowed to buy chocolate. When you apply for a driving license, they will tell you that you can't have one. Why not? You will ask. Because there is an 82% chance that you're going to develop epilepsy next year, they will tell you. You will have no rights over your private information. Companies everywhere will be able to buy it and hackers will be able to steal it. Hackers? The woman in charge of Britain's track and trace system was in charge of a phone company, mine actually, called TalkTalk, when hackers stole the personal information of 157,000 people. The company was fined massively for not looking after the information properly. Now she is in charge of the tracking and tracing system and the collection of vast amounts of personal information. What can we do about it? Well, until they make it compulsory, I do not think I'll bother having an antibody test done. Thank you very much. So I'm going to stop there. I will continue with another section shortly. Different topic. Thank you for listening. Food for thought. If they're not having my DNA, what do they need that for? No one can have it.